Everyone will bear that in mind. It's 7:11. Now, more and more people are turning to organic produce as they try to avoid all those chemicals used on our food. While most farmers do use some pesticides, the fruit and vegetables they grow must meet strict food safety regulations. But what about the food that we import? Well, last week, authorities in China found 10 tonnes of toxic vegetables with excessive pesticide residues. Now, we import produce from China, so is it safe? Well, Charlie Armstrong from the New South Wales Farmers Association joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Lovely to see you. First up, how much of our produce, our fresh produce, is imported from overseas, and primarily where from? I guess China. How much comes from there in particular?
Well, we import about $300 million worth, but the total production of that part of the industry is $3.2 billion, so it's only about 10% of the products in terms of fresh vegetables, frozen vegetables that we do import. In terms of the risk from China, none of that food was destined for Australia anyway, but certainly I think consumers can have complete confidence that the processes that are in place in Australia would have picked that up, so that it wouldn't have ever got onto the shelves.
Okay, so if that wasn't destined though for us, so you're saying that before we import anything, we have pretty strict, because I was even thinking last night, we're not allowed to take fruit and veggies between some states. Yes. So if we're that strict in our own country, I'm hoping we're even more so with fruit and veggies coming from other places.
Well, we do have the strictest health requirements and food requirements for the world. So, and part of the debate around that is that the World Trade Organisation and other countries wanting to export to Australia try to suggest that our food regulations are an anti-trade barrier, whereas in fact all they're doing is keeping food in Australia safe and healthy and clean for Australians.
About 10% of our stuff is imported, as you say. Does that affect Aussie farmers a lot, or is 10% a manageable rate?
Well, 10% is probably manageable in the $3.2 billion industry, but at the same time, of course, you don't want that to grow, and you don't want to have our local producers and local farmers threatened by imports. But in terms of the transport costs, in terms of the actual processes of getting it into Australia, we hope that we can protect Australia's clean, green status.
Where does the bulk of our stuff come from? Because we're talking now about importing kiwi apples.
Well, yes, that's another issue. But the bulk of our imports in food come from China. New Zealand, US and Italy are probably the four largest countries. And of course the New Zealand issue as far as apples go is another issue altogether.
So how do we feel about that? How will that affect us?
Well, we're very concerned. Australia is the only country in the world that doesn't have fire blight, and so why import potential fire blight pest into Australia?
But it would be heavily screened, wouldn't it, before it would come in?
Well, it's a bacteria, so it's very hard to find once it's in here, and it actually is only the reason it's called fire blight is that it leaves marks on the trees that look like they've been scorched. Blackened trunks, and eventually the tree dies. So it's quite devastating for anyone who's got apples to face up to having the disease.
Okay, all right, Charlie, thank you for clearing that up. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.